Welcome back. So, it's a pretty long-winded title because I couldn't think of a better way of explaining what I'm going to try and ramble on at you about for the next sort of 30, 40 minutes. Reacting and responding to injuries and incidents on the DZ. All right, say that 10 times fast. So the aim of this really, we're going to discuss some initial response, all right, and general procedures to when something happens, all right, should the worst happen. It is inevitable, right? It's kind of what makes skydiving exciting. So we need to talk about how to deal with it as it happens. So a bit of context. The BPA categorises injuries, all right, or incidents into these 4 categories. Don't dwell on those too much. That's just a bit of a filler slide, really. So, it makes it look like I've done some research outside of Langer. So this is the Langer stuff, referring to my handy highlighted clipboard of experienced injuries. Yeah, I've only got 1 page. That's pretty good. So how do we compare to the rest of the UK? So we had 17 injuries last year, 1 in just over 1,800 compared to a BPA average of 1 in just over 1,700. So injury-wise, we're doing all right. Malfunction-wise, there's definitely room for improvement. As Richard stated earlier, this does include the tandem malfunctions that we've had. So it's slightly weighted because, you know, the more you use packers, sorry, Pauline, the more malfunctions you have. Where is she? She's hiding somewhere. I won't go into the malfunction stuff in too much detail because Richard's basically stolen all of the horror stories that I had lined up. Cheers. So, injury-wise, 9 sport or experienced injuries compared 8 student injuries. Pretty even across the board there. Malfunction-wise, yeah, very heavily weighted on you guys. All right, so get back. Right, so let's, just before we move on, have a quick look at some of the injuries that we've had in the last year. The first one, fell onto a stone slab on landing. All right. We have paving slabs in the landing area. Someone hit one. We've now moved those for your information. Those of you that aren't aware, next time you're on the canopy, you'll see it's moved about 10 metres over the beer line, out of the landing area next to DZ control. So you can't pack there anymore, right? But you can't or shouldn't be able to fly into that. A lot of this stuff is very landing based. Light, high flare, and then let up, and then a weak flare. Hit the head, briefly unconscious. All right, that's a day and a half of that. Sat down on landing with a broken right little finger. All right. That is just unfortunate. I'm not going to name any names. Low weak flare, sprain to the ankle. All right, that was caused by a CF wrap. We've got high flare, we've got poor flare. Low turns into wind. All right, it's all very canopy related there. So maybe, I don't know, get on a canopy course or something. They're all fairly minor injuries. We didn't have that many super serious injuries last year. I think I've got, what we got down here, we had 3 serious injuries by the BPA classification last year. So, I mean, it could be better, right? We don't really want any of those, but having 3 is not terrible. Medium injuries, okay, we had 7. So, you know, people are getting hurt mostly just through a bit of poor canopy control. There is the trend. So who's been involved in an incident, either immediate care or the injured party themselves or had a malfunction? Show of hands, who's been involved in an incident? Yeah, all right. Out of those of us that have, who's had a malfunction? Yeah, I'm just going to leave my hand up. All right. Who's been injured? Yeah, all right, that bit sucks, doesn't it? All right, and we'll be drawing on some experiences there as we go through this. Who's been involved in the immediate care or the aftercare following or during an incident? All right, and we're going to talk about that in parts as well because that does need addressing. There's a shift across the BPA at the moment coming from the top, suggesting that perhaps we need to be training DZ staff better to respond to incidents. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a session where we had all of the staff, bar a couple that were unavailable, and we ran through a full detailed incident procedures lecture. okay, on how the staff should be responding to critical incidents, okay, when somebody gets seriously hurt on the DZ. It's not just about the first aid response, okay, it's about how the staff behave and who does what job, okay, and aftercare as well, how to deal with it afterwards, both other staff members and potential witnesses. So we'll be talking about that because there have been fatalities and incidents across BPA drop zones over the last couple of years that perhaps haven't been handled as smoothly as possible. So now there's this idea that perhaps we should train the staff, and actually the opinion we have here is we've trained our staff. What will really help and could make or break now is to give you guys a little bit of guidance and training as sport jumpers as to how you can help the process run a little more smoothly, because it can be a bit stressful. So it is unavoidable. At some point, incidents do occur. People do get hurt. It would be great if we could remove all injuries from skydiving. However, if we remove all injuries from skydiving, we remove most of the danger, which means it's just not as exciting. All right, that's the bare bones of it. There's the quote from Bill Booth, I guess. Richard may have already said it, but it's probably in Safety Day Bingo. High performance canopies took up the slack that AADs left. Skydivers are always going to find a way of hurting themselves or killing themselves because we want to make it exciting, so we have to make it dangerous to make it exciting. So, should an incident occur, stop. Stay still. Start thinking. So, you want to stay calm. The DZ staff are and should be trained to handle these situations. If you're in the immediate vicinity, you may need to assist the DZ staff, all right? You might be first on scene as a sport jumper. If you're not, please stay where you are. I'm going to work through these in a bit more detail as we go. So, stay calm, stop and think. The DZ controller will initially assume control. Okay, now that could be a fairly low experienced member of staff. Right? The minimum requirements to be a DZ controller on a BPA drop zone is a B licensed parachutist, right, that's been briefed in roles, responsibilities, and procedures, yada, yada, yada. So they could be fairly low experienced, but they take control until someone more senior relieves them. So if an incident happens, you guys want to be looking to the DZ controller, doing as they ask. Parachuting will be temporarily suspended until the state of that person is known. Now, this should be common sense, really. If you've got someone lying in the landing area that's injured and you drop another load, what if someone else gets hurt? Right, you're now fighting a war on two fronts again. Right, you've got two casualties. So do expect that parachuting will be suspended. If you're in the aircraft, you may well be landing with that aircraft, all right? So at least know what happens there. When do you refit your restraints? Make sure your hats are on for landing, all that sort of stuff. Listen to the requests and the instructions from the staff. Okay, the staff are trained and the staff are in charge here. In a stressful situation like that, if you're asked to move to a certain area or go and do a specific task, please go into the cafe, please let's move everyone away from the casualty, please leave, you're not being helpful, crying and screaming is not helping, would you like to go over there? All right, it's for your benefit, it's for the casualty's benefit as well, okay, so please follow those instructions. If we have people running around like mad things, it just creates chaos. Avoid swarming the casualty and surrounding area. I've seen it happen so many times. Somebody trips over on landing and they've broken their ankle. Yeah, all right, they've broken a bone, but it's a broken ankle, all right? 10 people go sprinting over to them. There's 10 of you and one of them, all right? Out of those 10 people, none of them are medically trained. They're just there. They've run 200 meters as fast as they can, like Usain Bolt. All right, they are bollocksed. They're out of breath. They can't speak. All right, they're shaking. They're no good. They've got no method of communicating back to the DZ controller. The staff know what to do. They know to pick up radios. They know to move to the casualty in a calm and controlled manner so they can deal with it and assess. So, if you're on the Spectator hanging out on those fantastic air supply lounges that we get every summer, because Phil Curtis is the most generous man in the room. All right. He doesn't even charge you for the use of them. It's great. And somebody lands on the far end of the landing area, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be any use when you've sprinted 200 metres across the landing area. Also, there could still be other parachutes coming into land. If you're doing your best David Hasselhoff running across the landing area, right, and someone swoops into you, there's now potentially 3 injured parties lying in the landing area, all right, and that is a situation that you have caused. Only the appropriately trained and relevant individuals need to attend the casualty. Right, now, I need to be careful what I say here so that I offend anyone. You may well be a doctor, but if you are a doctor of computer science or paleontology, okay, the call for is there a doctor in the house is somewhat less relevant to yourself. All right. Taking that a step further, do we have any medical professionals in the room? Okay, I'm thinking nurses, doctors. Yeah, we have one. All right, now, without singling Emily out, all right, she's a paediatric oncology nurse. Is she actually trained to deal with mass hemorrhaging and trauma? All right, she's potentially had basic first aid training. All right, we had an injury many years ago now, and we did have a doctor on site. Lovely lady. So she went over because someone grabbed her, and as she got there, she said, look, I mean, the guy's femur's sticking out of his leg. I'll do what I can because I'm a doctor and I have to, but I'm a consultant radiologist. Okay, so she did what she could, but fortunately, we also had an A&E registrar on site at that point. So as soon as we got hold of him, he came over and she went, oh, brilliant, thank you. All right, so just because somebody is medically trained, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are prepared to see what's in front, what could be in front of them, or actually willing to help. Nurses are not actually obliged, despite what people believe, to get stuck in for every situation, all right? And quite often, nurses is basic level first aid. Doctors may well be doctors, but they might not have worked in A&E for 20 years, okay? You may have done a St. John's first aid ambulance course, whatever, but they might not need a polo under their tongue. If you have relevant skills, all right, or you feel you can be of use, make yourself known to DZ staff or DZ control. It could be something as simple as, do you need somebody to go and stand by the gate in a high-vis jacket to marshal the ambulance in because I'm available? And at that point, the DZ controller might go, absolutely mega, you're a star, high-vis jackets are in there, there's a radio, off you pop, go stand by that gate, tell me when the ambulance arrives. So you can volunteer yourself should you feel that you're of need. But if it looks like the staff are on top of it, please just leave us crack on, all right? However, if you are first on scene, if you're on the landing area setting your brakes and someone pounds in next to you, I mean, you don't have to get involved, all right? You're not obliged. However, you may feel that you can do something. I was at a CP competition in Dunk as well, 2016 maybe. I'd just gone through the speed course. Not successfully. I'd blown out the side of the course because I over-boogied it on the entry gates. However, the bloke after me, right, he'd over-boogied a little bit too much and he flew directly into the steel pole that holds the laser gates at the end of the speed course. Right, he kicked his right knee with his right foot and was lying there with his tin fib poking out the side of his leg, about 3 foot away from me. So at that point, I kind of thought, all right, I'll get my kit off. I'll crank his leg strap up. Brilliant, the staff are here. Mega, I've done my bit. So if you're first on scene, don't move the casualty. Okay. They could have some serious injuries that you can't immediately see. If they are also trying to move, it's quite common when people break a leg or something to try and stand up because adrenaline is surging through their body and they think, I'm absolutely fine. Then they stand up and their foot's going that way and they're like, ooh. Or they have a bit of a wobble and they faint. So try not to move the casualty, and if they're trying to move, just suggest that they sit back down so you can check them over. If they have had a particularly hard impact, particularly if their head is struck the ground, leave the helmets on. If the helmets are obstructing access to the airways, if you need access to the airways, then yeah, you can get the helmets off. All right, it's worth having a look at a few types of helmets and figuring out how to get them off. Open face helmets is well easy, right? Take a clip off, gently remove it. Full faces, they can be quite complex, right? So that's when you might want to wait till the first aid kit gets there. So you've got cutters, particularly like the G3s, you can just go straight up the soft panel under the chin and then they'll come straight off. Particularly if you cut up the back as well. The KISS, a bit more complex because of the ratcheting system. So have a look at the helmets, but Leave them on where possible. You're going to want to perform primary and secondary surveys. Now, this is not a first aid lecture, and I am not qualified to teach you first aid. So just briefly, your primary survey, Dr. ABC, or whatever variation you've been taught, it seems to change every time you go on a first aid course. All right, there's millions of letters in there. And look for life-threatening injuries. If somebody's got a bone sticking out of their leg and there's a heavy bleed, yeah, you can get some pressure on that and you can shout over to the people on their way what's going on. And a secondary survey, this is signs and symptoms. So if somebody's kind of sat up and they're talking, but they're like, oh, my leg hurts, and you look down and their foot's that way and it's kind of at that angle, I mean, that's a pretty good sign. And they're telling you it hurts, so that's their symptoms. This all helps you communicate with the staff when they arrive. All right, if you're not first on scene, allow the DZ staff to do their job. Okay, it is our responsibility as DZ staff to control incidents and to respond to them. So give us the space to work. All right, too many cooks will spoil the broth, as they say. Stay nearby in case witness statements are required. Now, by nearby, I don't mean go 5 foot away, all right, and just hang out for the gossip, but stay on the DZ, because if there has been a serious injury, we'll often take witness statements. There was a fatality last year in the UK where a guy had a very hard landing after a canopy collapse. He was alive when he left the drop zone. But because it was serious, the chief instructor took witness statements from absolutely everyone, all right, sport jumpers, tandem spectators, and everything. So unfortunately, when the chap died a few weeks later in hospital, they had a plethora of information to go through to try and ascertain what had happened. So you may be required to fill out a witness statement. When you do, or if you do fill out witness statements, again, this should sound like common sense, but please fill it out on your own as an individual. Don't sit next to your mate and go, did they turn right? Oh, no, maybe they turned left. No, they definitely went right. All right, just write what you remember, all right, and what you saw as fact, because that will really help. Be respectful of the casualty. All right, this is that classic like rubbernecking thing when you have a road accident and everybody slows down just to have a quick little look at what's happened. If somebody's hurt lying out on the landing area, the last thing they want to do is look over and see 10 people stood there drinking their brews going, that looks a bit grim, doesn't it? All right, it's not nice. Think about the dignity of the person involved. This is a big one. Avoid making statements to spectators or members of the public. Tandem families are going to want to know what goes on. They have zero understanding of what we do. Okay, as someone that deals with tandem students and tandem families on a pretty much day-to-day basis, they generally have less than no idea of how our sport works. To them, we kill people all the time, right? And everything is a guaranteed death. So some of them, we've generally had somebody ask if the airplane hovers when we exit. All right, that's the sort of understanding that they may have. They're going to ask questions. Now, supplying incorrect information at this point, all right, could be quite damaging to the centre, to the individual, to anyone involved. So we want to avoid this no comment thing, because that just implies guilt or something. But generally, if you are cutting about and you've got tandem students or spectators asking you, oh, what's happened? Are they all right? You've just got to kind of play dumb a little bit and say, I didn't really see it. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure everyone will be given an update by one of the staff at some point, because that is a responsibility that will be delegated to a staff member. All right, is informing spectators as to what we know, what the facts are at that time, and also keeping sport jumpers informed to stop conjecture. All right. Op minimize. It's a military term. We've lifted straight from the military because it's just the easiest way to explain it. This goes into protecting the privacy and the dignity of the individuals. Social media, all right, is an absolute sod for this. Status updates, comments and posts, the dreaded black profile picture, all right, or when suddenly 20 of your friends change their picture to them and a single individual. That is the worst way. And I'm telling you from experience, that is the worst way to figure out that your friend has been killed. All right? So just stay off Facebook and social media as far as discussing or posting about an incident for a little while, please. Status updates. Oh, it was really sad to see what happened at Langer today. All right, that's that classic "you okay, hun" thing. All right, it's just not necessary. Comments and posts. Several years ago, I went through a spate of having quite a few malfunctions. Okay, the young lady I lived with at the time was less than supportive of my choice of high performance parachute and was getting towards the whole it's skydiving or me rubbish. I still have the parachute. I had my second malfunction in 2 days and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go home, have dinner, I'm not going to say a word because I can't be dealing with aggro. I'm sat outside, dinner in the sun, nice and chilled. Gets her phone out, she's scrolling through Facebook. Someone's just commented on someone written something on your profile. Ha ha ha, you had a chop, you knob. And I'm sat there, putting my dinner in my mouth, thinking, oh, here we go. All right. I'd opted not to say something because I didn't want to, and that was my choice. And now it had been exposed by my buddy ribbing me on Facebook. All right. The profile picture thing, that just sucks. All right, don't do that. Okay, respect the individual's privacy. The person involved, it is up to them whether people are made aware, right? If they are at all made aware, or when and how people are made aware. Rumours and speculation should be avoided. Oh, I heard this happened. Oh, I heard that happened. Oh, did you hear what happened at Langer the other day? All right, we've got that Chinese whispers thing. Okay, this really can be illustrated perfectly in an article written by the wife, whose name I can't remember, of an Australian CF jumper called Michael Vaughan. Very, very experienced, highly successful Australian CF jumper. Was coaching at a DZ. His wife was working away in another city, and he had a rap with his student, and it ended up basically being unsurvivable, or unrecoverable is probably a better word, because he didn't die on impact. He was taken to hospital. But people had seen this guy hit the ground hard at the DZ, and it was already on Facebook, oh, there's been a rap at such and such, all hard impact. There was posts on dropzone.com, not naming names, but about the fact that there's been an incident before the guy was even off the DZ, all right, which is just horrendous. His wife was then hounded with text messages and Facebook posts and WhatsApp messages and phone calls. I'm so sorry to hear about Michael. She's like, sorry, what? I'm working. I haven't been on Facebook. What's happened? So she phones the DZ. And DZ had said, yeah, there's been an accident. All right, he's critically ill. He's on his way to hospital. No. Somebody said he's dead. They're like, he's definitely not. We just put him in the ambulance. He's on his way to hospital. They got him to intensive care. They had him on ice and all sorts, trying to keep him alive for as long as possible because she had a long journey to get there. On her way, she's on the train or she's in the airport and she's getting more phone calls. Oh, I've just heard he's died in hospital. She's like, I'm doing everything I can to try and get there to say goodbye. And it's constant. Oh, no, he's dead. Oh, no, he's not dead. All right, it's absolutely devastating, and she goes through hell. The article is exceptionally well written, and it is 100% worth a read. All right, we've got a copy on the wall over there. It is available online. If you type in "surviving death online, skydiving" or something, it will appear. So let's keep that to a minimum. Friends and family, text messages and phone calls. It is not your job to notify next of kin with text messages and phone calls. Right, in the event of a fatality, that is the police's job. Right, in the event of a serious injury, generally we have next of kin details here on file for anyone that jumps here, and the centre will make that call, okay, because we know how to do it. I had an accident a few years ago, and I made it very clear that I needed to get my phone, and I specified who I wanted to make the phone call to one individual to make the phone calls to the rest of my family. Right, because I was potentially going to be quite seriously injured. I'd broken my back in 4 places. So I made a point of making that quite clear because I was able to. However, we have had other incidents where somebody's been lying in the landing area injured, pumped full of drugs, and actually said, I need this person or this person to make a specific phone call for me. By the time that message got off the landing area to us, somebody else had already picked up the phone and phoned that individual's next of kin. That's not okay, because that is not the wishes of the individual. So just because you see someone hit the ground, you can't pick up your phone and phone their wife and go, oh, it's not looking good, because they might be fine. So just have a little bit of consideration and respect there. Do you have the permission to make those phone calls? Right, if it's your sister and they've just, broken their leg, you know what, it might well be your job to ring your mum and go, Mum, Katie's done it again. All right. Yes, it is role reversal. Okay. I'm trying to paint myself in a more positive light. I can't always talk about me getting hurt. She's broken bones too. Okay. Incorrect or inaccurate information can devastate families and individuals and next of kin. Okay, so this is the main point really of this entire thing, other than stand still and let the staff do their work, is please think and just stay off social media for a little bit. So after an incident, it's heavy stuff done, what are we going to do? So we're going to notify the BPA. If it's serious, we'll phone them pretty much straight away. All right. If it has a potential to be fatal, we'll phone one or two individuals directly. If it's not, then we'll submit incident report forms. Anyone ever filled one of those in? Yeah, all right. Particularly if you spend a lot of time on a DZ, you'll see them being filled in. If you work on a DZ, you're going to do it all the time. We'll debrief the incident. This could be just amongst the staff, could be with the individuals involved. It may be as a whole on a day like this when we tell you all the horror stories. We're going to look at the procedures that were in place. Were they followed? The training of the individual, was it adequate? The supervision, does that individual need a bit more supervision? Let's think pack in here. All right, somebody's pat themselves a dirty mouth. Do we need to maybe just go watch and pack and go, there we go, that's the problem. Okay, and the severity of that incident will dictate that level of review, whether it's in-house, the BPA, or at more serious levels, the police and the coroner could get involved. Counselling is available via your local NHS, okay, and it should be sought out if you feel that you need to talk to someone after what you've witnessed. It can be pretty traumatic, witnessing an incident. Now, different people deal with trauma in different ways. Some people internalise, some people need to talk, some people just want to cry into their pint at the end of the day. However you deal with that, it's important that you do and you find a way. So the NHS stuff, it is free. There's no web links on here because it's trust-based, all right, so you need to access your local trust. But if you've seen a serious incident and actually you're feeling pretty bad about it, if you want to talk to someone impartial, you can talk to the NHS. If not, you're welcome to talk to the staff, all right? But maybe pick one of the members of staff that doesn't look like they're going to burst into tears when you ask them about it, because again, that might not be what that individual needs. So you need to ask people if you can talk about stuff. So let's just summarise quickly. Stay calm and think. All right, that is pretty important. Listen to the DZ staff. Okay, we know what we're doing. We have a very strict set of procedures to follow. Please allow us to do that and to work. Respect the privacy of any individuals involved. From the slightest incident up to the most serious, okay? It's all about respecting that individual. And aftercare is critical. Just because you're okay, your mates might not be. So if your mate was stood next to you when someone did a low turn and is actually feeling a bit rubbish about it, just ask them. Ask if they're okay. It is okay to talk to people, especially in this day and age where everybody likes to have feelings. All right. So the aim of this lecture, I was told last night that all my jokes were rubbish and I should leave them out, but you're all laughing, so in her face. Okay. The aim was to discuss some incident response, okay, and procedures to be followed. We've done that. Mega, we've achieved the aim. Boom, we're done. Now that we've finished all that sort of stuff, does anybody have any specific questions, burning desires they want to address relative